You think you know Jack and the Beanstalk, but the truth is far darker than any bedtime story. They say fairy tales are for children, but some stories were never meant to be read at bedtime. Jack and the Beanstalk is one such tale. A story scholars believe is over 5,000 years old, passed down through generations, hiding horrors beneath the colorful illustrations. It's a story of desperation, death, and the terrifying lengths a boy will go to survive. In a small crumbling cottage, Jack and his mother are starving. Their scrawny cow is their last hope. One final task could mean life or death. Jack must take the cow to market and earn enough to save them both. But Jack is a boy, reckless and naive, and the world is cruel. What seems like a simple errand quickly spirals into a nightmare. This is not a bedtime story. This is a tale of horror, greed, and the monstrous creatures that lurk just beyond sight. Tonight, we descend into the shadows of Jack's world, where one mistake can bring starvation, fear, and a chilling confrontation with a real-life ogre. What if your family's last chance at survival depended on you, and you failed? Desperation can twist even the simplest tasks into terror. Jack's mother, pale and gaunt, hands him the scrawny cow with trembling fingers. "Take it to town," she whispers. "Negotiate well, or we'll starve, son." Jack nods, filled with youthful confidence, blind to the weight of life and death resting on his shoulders. But in the cruel daylight of the market, Jack's heroism collapses. He is swindled by a con man who promises him magical beans that will grow food for a lifetime. And instead of gold or silver, he returns home clutching 3 ordinary beans. His mother stares in horror. Starvation now looms closer than ever. The beans seem like a cruel joke. Jack, innocent and foolish, believes in their magical potential, but his mother sees only empty plates staring back. In the dim cottage, Jack feels the weight of failure. He tries to justify his mistake, telling himself the beans will save them, but the gnawing fear of starvation lingers. This is the moment where fairy tales bleed into terror. The world punishes recklessness, and Jack's ignorance has brought real consequences. That night, the mother's rage is sharp. She rips the beans from Jack's hands and throws them out the window with a force fueled by despair. Outside, under the pale moonlight, the ground trembles softly overnight. By morning, they awake to see that the beans have grown into a towering beanstalk, stretching into the stormy clouds, as if nature itself mocks their suffering. Jack, filled with both dread and awe, comes to a strange conclusion: climb and risk death, or stay and starve. The beanstalk signals feelings of danger, of something waiting at the top, mysterious, monstrous, and merciful. That night, death was planted in the soil, and by morning, it had grown into the sky. The beanstalk pierces the clouds like a jagged spine. Jack climbs, each foothold creaking, his muscles screaming, the wind slicing through his thin clothes. Below him, the world he knew, the starving cottage, his mother's desperate eyes, shrinks into a nightmare. He climbs because he must, because fear is not enough to stop hunger. At the top, to his disbelief, he finds a road winding toward a gigantic, menacing house. An ogre woman standing at the doorway, as if expecting him. Jack, trembling, asks if she can spare any food. She reluctantly hands him bread, cheese, and milk, but warns, "My husband is an ogre. There's nothing he likes better than humans broiled on toast." The air is thick with a stench of death and roasting meat. Jack eats quickly, but terror courses through his veins. The ogre returns home with a monstrous roar. He senses Jack. Fee-fi-fo-fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll have his bones to grind my bread." The wife gestures wildly, suggesting he smells leftovers from yesterday's victims. Jack's heart pounds as he dives into the only place he could find to hide: the oven, the heat mixing with the stench of the beast's prey. From his hiding place, he glimpses the ogre's massive hands, hear his teeth grinding bones, the horror of his strength, and the mortal danger of a single misstep. Jack survives, clutching scraps of food, shaken to his core, knowing the stakes. One wrong move and he will become breakfast. Yet, survival fuels audacity. After his meal, the ogre puts his head down, and after a few minutes that feel like eternity, the ogre falls asleep. Jack spots a bag of gold gleaming in the dim light, untouched by human hands. Greed and desperation intertwine. Stealing from a monster is easy, until he comes looking for it. Jack's first escape was not without cost. He fled down the Beanstalk with a bag of gold. When finally home, his mother's eyes widening in disbelief at the treasure he had brought back. For the first time in weeks, they ate, laughed, and breathed without dread. Yet even with gold in their hands, fear lingered. Jack knew the truth. He had stolen from a monster. But greed grows faster than hunger. The gold dwindled, slipping away with each passing day. Jack's mind turned back to the ogre's house. The terror he felt hiding in that oven still clung to him like smoke, but so did the sight of endless riches. He convinced himself if he was brave enough once, he could be brave again. The Beanstalk loomed in the night like a black serpent. Jack climbed once more, each step echoing with the thought that he was trespassing into a death sentence. Again, he begged food from the ogre's wife, and again she warned him of her husband's appetite for flesh. The ogre's footsteps thundered through the halls. Jack barely had time to dive into hiding before the beast's voice shook the air. Fee-fi-fo-fum. The ground seemed to tremble with each word, his words vibrating in Jack's chest. This time, Jack watched as the ogre called for something more horrifying than gold. "Bring me the hen that lays the golden eggs." The creature's command was answered by a miracle of wealth, each egg shimmering with polished beauty. When the ogre fell into his heavy, monstrous slumber after his meal, Jack crept forward, hands shaking as he snatched the hen. The bird let out a faint cry, but the ogre stirred only slightly. Jack fled into the night, his heart hammering as the prize squirmed in his arms. Some treasures don't want to be stolen, and they'll scream for their master if you try. Now Jack and his mother had wealth beyond imagining. The hen laid golden eggs without end. Yet Jack could not rest. Greed, or perhaps guilt, drove him back once more. Riches were not enough. He wanted everything the ogre had. Under cover of night, Jack ascended the Beanstalk a third time. But this time, there would be no kindness from the ogre's wife. He slipped into the house unseen, hiding in a copper pot as the ogre stomped through the hall. The familiar chant roared again. Fee-fi-fo-fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll have his bones to grind my bread. Jack's heart pounded, his breath caught in his throat. But the ogre turned away, sitting at the table, devouring broiled oxen, bones snapping like twigs in his jaws. Then he called for something. "Bring me my harp that sings." The harp was no ordinary instrument. Its voice was haunting, mournful, each note echoing like the cries of lost souls. When the ogre commanded it to sing, the air itself seemed to weep. Jack, transfixed, watched as the giant's eyelids grew heavy, his monstrous body collapsing into a thunderous slumber. Jack crept forward, sweat pouring down his face. His hands closed around the harp's golden frame. But the moment he moved, the harp screamed, its voice sharp and panicked. "Master! Master!" The ogre's eyes snapped open, rage filling the room. He rose with terrifying speed, his shadow blotting out the firelight. Jack ran, harp clutched to his chest. But the beast was faster, bellowing in fury. The house shook with each step, the floorboards splintering as the monster gave chase. Jack sprinted to the beanstalk, the ogre's breath hot on his neck. When the giant came from the clouds, the earth itself shook with his rage. The night split open with chaos. Jack scrambled down the beanstalk, clutching the shrieking harp, every fiber of his being screaming in terror. Above him, the ogre's colossal hands tore at the vines, his roar thundering across the skies. Fee-fi-fo-fum. The monster howled, the words rolling like thunder. Jack's arms burned, his legs numb, but still he climbed, down into the darkness. The harp wailed in his grip, its voice a beacon for the enraged beast. At last, Jack reached the ground. His mother stumbled out of the cottage, eyes wide with horror as she saw the towering shadow of the ogre descending. "The axe," Jack screamed. "Get the axe," desperation cracking his voice. She brought it forth, hands trembling, and Jack swung with all his strength. The first chop barely did any damage. The second sent a few lone leaves falling to the ground. The third, a few splinters were sent flying. After 10 consecutive swings, the stalk began to sever with a groaning snap. Slowly, the beanstalk toppled, crashing through the clouds like a falling tower. The ogre bellowed, clawing for purchase, his roar breaking into a final, guttural scream. Then he plummeted, striking the ground with a quake that silenced even the thick. His body lay shattered, his monstrous shadow extinguished. The harp was quiet now, lifeless in Jack's arms. The beanstalk lay in ruins. The night was still. Jack and his mother were safe, rich, alive, yet in the silence, Jack felt no triumph. He felt only the echo of the chant, the hollow weight of the harp, and the haunting truth. He had awakened an ancient evil and survived not by bravery, but by sheer luck. Fairy tales tell us Jack lived happily ever after, but the truth? Jack never slept soundly again. The tale of Jack and the Beanstalk may seem like a children's story, but beneath its surface is a tale of horror, starvation, betrayal, and a boy who risked everything after making one deadly mistake. Scholars say the story is over 5,000 years old, whispered across generations, warning us about greed, hunger, and the monsters that stalk us when we're weakest. Jack may have survived, but he left behind screams that never truly fade. The ogre's thunderous chant, the harp's desperate cry, and the knowledge that some treasures come at a terrible cost. So next time you hear the words Fee-fi-fo-fum, remember, they weren't meant to comfort, they were meant to terrify. This was not a fairy tale. This was a warning. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join us for more chilling tales and mysteries from the unknown. And as always, don't forget to look beyond the fog.